Let's try that again. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lynchburg. We are glad you are here. Whoever you are, whatever your beliefs, whatever your age, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. My name is Jim Billings, and I've been a mostly active member of this church since 2003. If you are with us for the first time on Zoom, we are glad you chose to be here this morning to participate in the service for this beloved community. If you would like to receive our monthly newsletter and Friday email updates, please fill out the virtual visitor card found on our website at uulynchburg.org under Sunday Services. This week, the Reverend Eve Stevens is with us, also virtually, from Asheville. Now, next Sunday on the 19th, the Reverend Ben Moore, Senior Minister of Timberlake Christian Church, will be preaching on the topic, Listen to Love. And Reverend Terry will be preaching at First Christian Church. We are grateful to have a strong interfaith clergy group in Lynchburg, and we look forward to this annual pulpit exchange next Sunday. Now, there's a couple of other announcements.
Yes, Jim. This is Gary Duvall. Our annual Poetry Sunday service will be February 9th at the same time and station. There is an announcement in the newsletter, and it's open to friends and members and anyone who is a fan of poetry or a poet. If you're interested in participating in this service, either as a reader or, well, basically as a reader, whether it's your own work or somebody else's work, please contact me. Contact information is in the newsletter announcement. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary. So in light of the inclement weather this past over this weekend, we have a couple of reschedulings to announce. Our Super Soup Sunday, which was scheduled for today, has been moved to next week. If you've already signed up for Soup Sunday this week and you can do next week, then you don't need to make any changes. But if you cannot do next week, please edit your response in the Sign Up Genius or contact Courtney. And if you've not signed up at all, it's not too late to sign up for next week. Also, the Kids Book Club has been rescheduled to next week at 3 o'clock, January 19th. And I'd like to call out special thanks to Emily for recording the music and Stacy Yoder for lots of snow shoveling at the church in the U House this past weekend. So now we're at the point of our service. Actually, I wanted to see if there are any other announcements.
Jim, this is Dick Bain. Do you think the audio on the piano could be turned down a little bit? It's pretty loud. I don't know if If our tech guy can do that.
I mean the music, the email, the videos.
Yeah,
Yes.
the audio on the piano video.
Yeah. Why can let's see. Yeah, I'll look at that.
Thank you.
You can adjust the audio on your computer when it's playing, but
I turned it all the way down and it's still pretty loud.
I'll look at that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Please. All right, well, at this point, we're going to light the chalice here in our home, and I'd like to present a chalice that Isabella made yesterday. It won't be in the screen view for the entire time, but we're going to light it. And if you say with me the words of our chalice lighting, may the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers
to
not
help,
harm,
to
to help
and
not to hinder,
to
to bless and not to curse,
curse.
to serve you,
You,
the spirit of life.
life.
So,
Those are beautiful words you all always say together, and thanks for having me back. It's great to be with you again. For as long as people have been able to record their thoughts for future generations, myths have been crafted and retold. Powerful stories that gather layers of meaning with each generation. Myths have been handed down for centuries to help us make sense of the world around us and the world within us. In an interview exploring the writing process, the great author Toni Morrison talked about the myths that had been handed down to her as a child that kind of helped create the world of her imagination that we all would benefit from in her writing. And she talked about the myths that were handed down to her. There was one that stood out the most, and she remembers it just being woven into conversation casually again and again. And the way that it was told to her in the days of slavery in this country, there were times when enslaved people, bodies breaking, souls weary, without any explanation, would simply lift their feet from the ground and fly back home to Africa. And when she grew up, Morrison read all the stories that she could find by formerly enslaved people searching for this story. And throughout the narrative, she read this same thing again and again. And when she would find people being interviewed about it, when they were asked, well, did you ever see this? Did you ever see people just lift their feet from the ground and fly home? She said they always said one of two things. Either they would say, no, I didn't see it, but I know somebody who did. Or they would say, yeah, I saw it. Which leads Morrison to conclude, as she says, one thing that must be said about myths is that they hold the truth, no matter how bizarre they may seem. So with that in mind, let's sing together as loud and best we can in our own homes, number 1020, Whoa Ya Ya.
All right, well, that was lovely. So we're moving to time for all ages. So for those of us who are young and young at heart,
Good morning. We have a really great book this morning. It's called Wally and Freya, and it's about some friends who have been misunderstood. But we learn through sharing things about ourselves, like when we share our stories, that helps us connect with people and helps them to understand us a little bit better. So this is Wally and Freya, written by Lindsay Pointer. Wally was a bully. That's what everybody said. They were sure that hurtful thoughts were all that filled his head. Wally stole lunch every day from Bella Joe the bear, and he always hogged the crayons and then refused to even share. Needless to say, when it was time for the kids to play, Wally's classmates all would holler, "Wally, go away." During recess, kids brought pens and imagination soared. They wrote of pirates, goblins, ghouls, dragons, knights, and lords. Freya, the red fox, wrote the most captivating tales of terrifying monsters with big teeth as sharp as nails. One day, Freya's book of tales simply disappeared. It's lost and gone forever, or so the children feared. Raphael the rabbit spoke up fast to save the day. Wally took the book, he said. Quick, he went that way. And they see some footprints on the ground. That's the clue that they're following. Chasing after Wally, they were shocked by what they found. Pages of the book were scattered all across the ground. Freya's words were hidden under Wally's scary doodles of terrifying monsters eating eyes and guts like noodles. They all let out a gasp. What have you done? The group exclaimed. Wally ran into the forest, looking quite ashamed. But Freya thought twice as she watched young Wally go and followed down the grassy path to where the oak trees grow. Wally was there, hanging his head and kicking the dirt. Freya saw in Wally's eyes that both of them felt hurt. Your drawings are amazing, Freya genuinely said. This made Wally smile, and he slowly turned his head.
Wait, the drawings what he how he feels like?
Maybe. Why did you take my book? She asked, with kindness in her eyes. I don't know, said Wally, letting out a big, long sigh. I guess I just always wanted to be part of the fun, but you wouldn't understand. You're friends with everyone. Nobody likes me, Wally said, while looking very sad. Sometimes I get so sad, and then that sadness makes me mad. He told his new friend Freya about troubles in his home and told her how he felt so scared and completely alone. Freya sat and listened, and she let Wally talk on. And by the end of Wally's story, her anger was gone. I have a fun idea, she said, with kindness in her smile. And together they gathered her book's pages into a pile. Freya told a story and it made them come alive. The monsters were embarking on a dangerous deep sea dive. When her epic story ended, everybody cheered. They saw that Wally was an artist and didn't need to be feared.
Oh, look at the little
I know, isn't it cute?
Mm-hmm.
From that day on, Wally was a member of the crew. The others wrote the stories, and as for Wally, well, he drew. You see, Freya did something quite special on that fateful day. Instead of striking back, she made sure that Wally was okay. There is always much more to people than what we can see. Beautiful things happen when we practice empathy. And I liked this book too because it showed them sharing their stories with one another. And that's how they got to know one another better. And they could become friends once they knew more about each other. So thank you for listening to our story this morning.
Thank you, Courtney. That was very wonderful and appropriate. All right, well, moving on. Today, we gratefully receive an offering of gifts for the work of this congregation. The monetary support of our members and friends, along with the generous gifts of time and talent, make the work of this congregation possible. I invite you to make a donation on the website through PayPal, Venmo, or credit card, or you can send a check to the church office. And so we take an offering of gifts generously offered and gratefully received. It is our tradition to share the joys and concerns in our
Thank you all. So Isabella and I are going to tell you a story now. So settle in and get a little more comfortable.
Our story is an ancient Sumerian myth about the goddess Inanna and her descent into the underworld.
The Sumerian people who recorded this myth 5,000 years ago, it's some of the earliest written anything. They lived between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now southern Iraq. And the story is called From the Great Above to the Great Below and Back.
Inanna was referred to as Queen of Heaven and Earth. She was a complex and powerful goddess. Her power extended into many realms of life, including love, fertility, war, justice, and wisdom.
The version that we're drawing from to tell our story was created by a collaboration between translator Samuel Noah Kramer and storyteller Diane Wolkstein.
Our story begins with Inanna deciding to journey into the underworld. She is determined to see Ereshkigal, goddess of death, queen of the underworld.
The underworld is the one place in existence that Inanna has never been. And in preparation for her journey, she gathers all the symbols of her power, her crown, necklaces of deep blue beads, her royal robe, a shining balm worn around her eyes, a breastplate, a gold ring, and a lapis measuring rod.
She dressed in all her finery, the trappings by which people saw her and knew that is Inanna. Ready with her armor for protection and the trusted measuring rod she used to make sense of the world, she went down into the great below.
When she arrived at the outer gates of the underworld, she knocked loudly and bellowed in a fierce voice, "Open the door, gatekeeper. I alone would enter." Nettie, the chief gatekeeper of the underworld, asked, "Who are you?" To which Inanna replied, "I am Inanna, queen of heaven and earth."
Nettie looked her over and said, "I have to wonder, if you are truly Inanna, why has your heart led you on the road from which no traveler returns?"
Then Nettie went to tell Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. He said, "My queen, a maid as tall as heaven, as wide as the earth, as strong as the foundations of the city wall, waits outside the palace gates. She has gathered the symbols of her power and has them in her possession."
The queen of the underworld commanded Nettie to bolt close the 7 gates of the underworld and to only allow Inanna to pass through, each after giving up one of her possessions.
The goddess of death said, "Let the holy priestess of heaven enter, bowed low."
Sure enough, at each gate, Inanna was told to give up one of her possessions every time she asked why she was told. Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned.
After all 7 gates, Inanna had nothing left in her possession to prove that she was herself, the queen of heaven and earth. She entered the throne room naked and bowed low.
Ereshkigal rose from her throne, and as Inanna went to meet her, the queen of the underworld fastened the eye of death on Inanna and spoke against her the word of wrath, striking Inanna down.
Life left Inanna's body. 3 days and 3 nights passed before Inanna's grandfather, the god Enki, took pity on her.
He took some dirt from under his fingernails and used it to bring to life 2 beings neither male nor female, and instructed them to bring Inanna back to life.
These holy beings descended into the underworld, and when they entered the throne room, they found a strange scene. Nearby Inanna's lifeless body, they found the queen of the underworld, the goddess of death, lying on the ground, moaning with the cries of a woman about to give birth.
As she cried out, "Oh, my inside!" the holy beings joined her cry. "Oh, your inside," they said. "Oh, my belly! Oh, my back! Oh, my heart!" the goddess cried, and the beings joined in empathy. "Oh, your belly, your back, your heart!"
The queen of the underworld was deeply moved by their empathy and kindness. When her pain at last stopped, she offered them anything they wished.
They, of course, asked for the body of Inanna.
It was given. They sprinkled the water of life over the motionless goddess. Slowly, slowly, Inanna awakened.
Slowly, slowly, she made her way to the great above. She was different, newly alive.
Now she carried with her the powers and the mysteries of death and rebirth. Now, let's hear this story again in a different way, in a different time, in a different place. Elaine Mansfield is a writer, and through her writing, she explores the intricacies of relationship and how we humans navigate change and grief. In one of her essays, Mansfield tells the story of her husband Vic's cancer diagnosis. After receiving the news, Mansfield and her husband sat waiting in an examination room. The hum of the lights and a sterile white glow folded in around them. It was disorienting. Mansfield could hear the sound of her own heartbeat in her ears as she tried to keep her voice even and steady. She writes, "I had arrived at the door of the oncologist's office, armed with my notebook, my list of well-informed, rational questions, my suggestions, and my fierce resolve." In spite of her careful preparations and fierce resolve, Vic received a terminal diagnosis, and the life Elaine Mansfield had known began to come apart at the seams. Mansfield was pulled deeper and deeper into the possibility and then the inevitable reality that she would lose her husband. As long as Vic lived, she wrote later, I knew my position in the family and the community. I knew who I was. After Vic's death, Mansfield descended deep into her grief, down and down. And as she did, she lost parts of herself along the way, the things by which people knew who she was. After his death, she says, I lost my role as wife, partner, lover. She had been a woman's health counselor, but could no longer find the motivation to work. For months, she was stuck in a blur of monotonous, difficult, and listless days. The people started to come in and out of her home, bringing food, folding laundry, sharing memories. And in time, slowly, slowly, life stirred in her again. And slowly, slowly, she recognized her own experience in others. Friends shared their own stories of grief, of losing and regathering parts of themselves to create another life entirely. Slowly, slowly, she found her way back to living. And as she did, a new creative energy flowed through her, unlike any she had known before. Story after story poured out onto the page. She emerged from the depths, seeing what she hadn't seen before, overcome with a desire to share with others what she now knew about what matters and what doesn't, about fear and finding a way through it, about gratitude for ordinary days. Let's hear the story again, in a different time, in a different way, in a different place. Activist Janet Mock was born as Charles Mock. Assigned male at birth, she was the third in her family to receive the name Charles, following her grandfather and her father. It was a heavy name to carry. And as a small child growing up in Hawaii, Janet sensed another world inside of herself. The little boy on the outside was someone else entirely on the inside. Janet's kindergarten best friend was a girl named Marilyn, and they lived in the same two-story building in Kalihi Public Housing, and they spent most of their time together. And one day, they were lying outside in the grass, playing Truth or Dare. And when it was Janet's turn, Marilyn dared her to steal her grandmother's muumuu from the clothesline, put it on, and run to the park across the street and back. Janet accepted the dare. She slipped into the muumuu dress, a dress much too large for the body of the little boy Charles, and started to run. Almost immediately, something started dancing deep inside the little boy named Charles. An aliveness woke up and laughed. She was suddenly so aware of the secret of her legs hidden beneath the cloth, the way her hips moved, how delicate her feet appeared, peeking out where the colorful hem touched the ground. That same aliveness withdrew as quickly as it appeared, crying out in shame as her grandmother discovered the scene, yanked the muumuu over Janet's head, and spanked her soundly. As she grew older, this secret world, this hidden world inside the boy named Charles became more and more vivid. And the world around the boy named Charles grew dimmer, harder to recognize, harder to move through. Her father's anger over his son's quote unquote sissy ways cut deeper. When Janet became a teenager, she realized there was no turning back. She could not live as Charles. She turned inward and journeyed downward, down and down. As she went, she let go of the baggy Ninja Turtles t-shirts and started wearing lip smackers necklaces and snug jeans. She guided her voice to a new octave. She let go of he, him, and his. It was scary thinking she might have to relinquish the protection of her family's love as she went. Scary to set aside the armor of social acceptance and approval. She journeyed downward, down and down, until Charles was gone. Her family grieved his death. Slowly, slowly, from out of this ending, a space was made for new life. Janet emerged, awakening little by little. Cousins and neighbors, friends, and some family began to see her, know her as she was. Slowly, slowly, Janet began dressing, talking, living as a young woman, emerging from the depths, newly free, newly alive. At one time or another, each of us has lived this story, traveling from the great above to the great below and back. We too have descended at one time or another into an underworld, giving up something precious and shiny, some marker of who we were or what we had on the way down, relinquishing some protective armor, some certainty we had thought would see us through. And then we have waited, being suspended there in the great below for days or even a season. But there in the depths, even as we witnessed an ending and grieved what we had lost, there were labor pains too. A beginning stirred. New life was born, and slowly, slowly we made our way upward. If you are one among us in the midst of descent, we gathered here journey with you. If you are waiting and have been waiting in the depths, let us hold faith with you that new life will stir again. If you are just awakening, looking upward, sore, weary, newly alive, newly imbued with insight and energy, we gathered here celebrate your power. We give thanks for your rebirth. We emerge slowly from the great below, but we do emerge like those before us, carrying different possibilities, seeing ourselves and the world around us with new eyes. Blessed be. Amen. Would you be with me in a time of meditation? I invite you to close your eyes, to begin breathing more intentionally in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. In that language of breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth, exhaling for longer than you're inhaling. That is one language you use to tell your body all is well in this moment. I am safe. This is steady ground. In through your nose, out through your mouth for longer than you inhaled, emptying fully all your breath before inhaling again. And as you continue that circle of breath, that bringing life in and emptying it out, put one hand on your belly And as you breathe, just gently rub or hold your belly as you would a loved one's back. Deeply present, as we heard earlier, the joy, being deeply present with yourself. And as you're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, emptying all the way before you fill again. Just take a moment in the silence to locate yourself in this story. If it is the moving downward, losing things or giving them up as you go. If it is the waiting in the dark, the uncertainty, or if you have emerged perhaps some time ago with new insight, newly powerful, just think for a moment, locate, feel your way into the story. And as you find yourself in the great above or the great below or back, just keep rubbing your belly, breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just listen, given where you are in this story, just listening to your inner world. What are you feeling and what do you need? And as you breathe, just see what answers lift up to you. You don't have to go searching, just breathing and curious. What am I feeling? What do I need? With that reassuring hand on your belly, that place of intuitive knowing and feeling. What do I feel? What do I need? And then finally, as you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, teaching your body, whatever difficulty may surface, you are safe in this moment. Just asking yourself in the silence once more for an answer to rise up to you, given that everyone around me is at some place, finds them somewhere in this story, bowed low, newly risen. What do I have to offer to others this week? What do I have to offer? With whatever word, whatever feeling came for you, tucking that into your heart, both what you need and what you have to offer. Just take a few final deep circle breaths in through your nose, fully emptying out through your mouth. Enjoying that circle of breath so many have enjoyed before you and will enjoy long after us. Then slowly, slowly, as you feel ready, stretch, move, blink your eyes open, and come back to being together. And join in your own way at home in our final hymn, number 212, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle.
We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. Sisters, brothers, all. Here we seek and find our glory. Here we seek and find our glory. Here we seek and find our glory. Sisters, brothers, all. Every round a generation, every round a generation, every round a generation, sisters, brothers, all. On and on the circles moving, on and on the circles moving, on and on the circles moving, sisters, brothers, all.
So now is the time of the service where we wave farewell, but we don't say goodbye because we're going to be having a virtual Drysdale Hall social hour after the service is over. And as our service draws to a close, we extinguish the flame of our chalice as we say these words together. I'll blow it out.
Sure.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And sending you off with a good word from Unitarian Universalist minister Teresa I. Soto, who says, "Where is life sending you? Here, now. Whether your task today is to work or to heal, to rest or to play, together we make the journey much more possible than alone.